I'm going to. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Caring Too Much, or are you caring too much? How to set boundaries and stop overextending yourself. We are so thrilled and humbled to be here with you today. There was such a wonderful display of appreciation when we had the discussion on Beyond the Roles that we decided to do this quarterly. So we're really, really excited to share with you as well as you sharing with us. All right. So um, we'll start with Simone. Simone, tell us something about yourself.
Good night. It's a privilege to be here once again. You are right. The first discussion was so rich that we have to do it twice. My name is Simone Burke-Cousins, and I'm a mom of two. I'm married and I live in Delaware. I am the founder of Bereavement and Beyond, which is my baby, my other baby. And in that space, I help people to navigate grief and loss and other life transitions. You know, when we think about loss, we oftentimes think about it in the context of death, but I delve a little bit deeper to help people to realize that it's so much more than just focusing on death. We can focus on anticipatory loss, which is a loss before death, or any type of loss. I focus a lot on caregiving and those topics that people are uncomfortable talking about. I am learning and expanding and growing, and I'm here to learn from the wonderful ladies here as well as play my part in this discussion.
All right. Thank you. Thank you
Mhm.
for being willing to join in on this discussion. Yvette?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Marcella and Simone. So, I'm Yvette from the Philippines, and I put up the pivot point, life coaching and workshops, and I believe in the power of self awareness. That's where we get our inner strength. So it reminds me of this story of the mythical gods trying to hide that knowledge. So one placed it under the sea, and then they said, "No, some people are so intelligent. One day they're gonna find it." And then another god suggested, "No, put it up in the heavens, in the universe." Oh no, one day the people are so intelligent they're gonna find it. And one silent mythical god said, "Put it inside of them." And so that is what I want to show everyone and where I want to guide everyone that the inner strength, the inner power, it's all inside of us. So that's what I do. And I'm a mom, a wife, and a grandmom.
Mm-mm.
So welcome everyone and looking forward to this beautiful conversation with these amazing ladies.
Yes. And I am your host, Marcella Crank from Crank It Up Coaching. And I am just so excited. My platform is Crank It Up Coaching. And my specialty is helping people to reflect on what's going on in their life. Then we will reset what's not working for you. And then you will rise to higher heights and deeper depths. And I'm just so happy that you have decided to join us on this journey talking about setting boundaries and stop overextending yourself. And
Mm-mm.
the question is, are you carrying too much?
Mm.
So let's get right into it with our first question. At what point did you realize you were carrying too much?
Mm.
Either one of you can go.
Okay, I can start it off. So, for me, I want to define what a boundary is. In anything I do, I try to set that foundation because I realize that different things mean different things to different people. So for me, my definition of a boundary is a parameter or a rule that I put in place to protect myself, to protect me from the other person, and to protect the other person from me. Right? It's not a rule, it's not an option, not a suggestion, it's a parameter and a rule that has to be honored, right? But there was a point in time where I wasn't that self aware and I found myself giving and giving and giving. And as humans, what I know is if you give, people are going to take, not because they don't necessarily have conscience, but those boundaries aren't there. So those parameters are clear. But for me, getting to that point was a journey. It didn't just happen one day out of the blue. Hey, this is where you are. It's something that happened gradually. So I remember, I believe it was last year, March, I was working and I just started to have heart palpitations and started to feel exhausted and my pain level increased and I felt a lot of changes physically that I wasn't accustomed to. So for me, it showed up by becoming physically sick and just being resentful and very agitated to the point where I started to snap at my kids a little bit more than usual. And my kids are small. So it wasn't one specific time, it's something that crept up on me over time and it had to send me to the ER literally for me to realize that, hey, you are doing too much and you need to step back in order to be of any good to yourself and those around you. So it's a gradual process for me, just didn't creep up overnight.
All right.
Honestly, yeah, for me, um, at what point did I realize? Actually, you think you're just doing okay, but then you feel inside you that it's getting too heavy. As we said,
Mhm.
we're carrying too much, and we're getting sick. We're having resentments. So I felt those things. I think later on in my life, um, I think about when I was already married and I had my children, because for me it was just giving, 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 giving. But then there was a time that you ask yourself, "Wait, I'm so tired. Where do I put the limits for this?" And so there it is. And for me, when I think of boundaries, I think of your house is open. There's no fence. There's no gate. Everybody can enter. Anybody can take anything. And
Mhm.
then before you realize it, you have nothing at home. So for me, and boundary will be putting a fence and allowing the people who are worth your time, worth your energy to be there. And then, just having that fence and that gate. So if it's open, you choose who enters there.
Mhm.
For me, that's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I add something to that, Marcella?
sure you can. Sure you may.
Yeah. I love that analogy. And I was reading something, Yvette, where they were talking about being in the digital age. And, we will delve further into it in the discussion, because a lot of people think that boundaries are bad. But the lady was talking about your Wi Fi password or even your Netflix password, right? If I share my password with Marcella, and she gives it to Yvette and her friends and family, those parameters would have been blurred. That fence that you described would have been broken down. And
Mhm.
so it would be up to me to change my password, which would be setting up the boundary in order to protect my asset, which in that case would have been my Wi Fi or my
Mhm.
Netflix password. So sometimes we give people access and they take advantage of it, but we have to pull back and build that fence in order for us to set up that fence. And I like to think of the fence not as a chain link fence and not necessarily a concrete fence because I believe in
Yeah.
flexibility too. So the chain link fence is weak, so anybody can just shove it down and violate your boundary there. But the concrete is also too rigid. So I like
Yeah.
to, I don't know what material that would be, but I'm somewhere in the middle where I can be a little bit flexible, but not to my detriment. So it was just amazing hearing you talk about the fence just now, Yvette.
Wonderful. And I like that you put in the digital because
Yes.
it is what it is right now.
So, Yvette, I think, may have gotten the fence analogy from my book, Self Love Work
Hmm.
Mhm.
for Women.
Mhm.
And
Nice.
that's in the boundary section. And
Mhm.
that's exactly how I view it. Boundaries, you can have a fence, and the fence could actually be locked for certain
Mhm.
people. And then other people that are maybe, are not necessarily in your inner circle, they have to ring the bell. And
Mhm.
then you can have, a swinging door for your inner circle because they already know your boundaries.
Mhm.
And let me
That's
just
beautiful.
share real quick about how I knew I was carrying too much, because I think this is important. And a lot of us go to church, and at one time, that was what I was doing. I was carrying too much at church because, and this is, I think this, because I've been a manager, you tend to go to people who are yes people who could get the job done, right? So that's what happened with me, is that every time something needed to be done, it was, Marcella, can you do this? Marcella, can you do that? Marcella, Marcella, Marcella. And I would always say yes, until I realized that I was just exhausted and I needed to assess what was going on with me. And
Mhm.
so that's exactly what happened. I assessed it and I found out that I was carrying too much. There were way more, it wasn't just me in the church, it was other people, other people could be asked. And like I
Mhm.
said, this happens a lot in church as well as in your job, because your supervisor can knows that you'll get the job done. And so it's easier to ask somebody that they trust, that they know will do the job, versus asking somebody else who may not even really be doing anything.
Mhm.
So those kind of situations cause us to carry too much, and will cause us, what this session is about is what do we do about it? What do we do about it?
Yeah.
So let's go to the next question. Have you ever mistaken overextending for love? What helped you recognize the difference?
Mm.
Well, I'll start because I could relate to this question so much, because for me, when I love somebody, I never want to say no, and I think that that's an innate quality with women. We don't want to say no. We want to help, 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 help. And because I love you, so I want to be there for you. But guess what? You have to take care of yourself first.
Mhm.
And that is what happened with me. I realized that, and it's so interesting. I want to share this, that when you change up and you're not always there overextending yourself for somebody, they may get an
Mhm.
attitude because you've
Mhm.
changed. And um, they may get an attitude. I'm sorry, I'm letting the Shahada in. But they may get an attitude because you change and they don't know how to deal with you now.
Mhm.
Yeah. So interesting you said about how others will perceive you and how to deal with you differently when you have set your boundaries. That is so true. And they think you, because you've changed, because you're not the same person, they put you in a negative light. So for me, where have I mistaken understanding for love? So back in the day, I would love to help women and create all these livelihood things for them. Because when I see them at school and just gossiping, it's like for me, wow, such a waste of time. And so I would talk to the principal and let's put up a livelihood here. And, while the moms are waiting. So I was so passionate about it that I would overextend myself in terms of hours, in terms of resources, in terms of really going even the extra mile so that they can like pick them up from their house and bring them to school so that they can take advantage of what was offered by the school and the government and the city government for livelihood opportunity so that they can, while you're doing that, while you're waiting for your kids, you can have livelihood projects. You can do some things that can have extra income to help augment the family finances. And so at that point, so my kid said, "Where are you, mom?" I'm still here in the livelihood. And I felt that okay, this is not anymore love for neighbor or love for women or love for what I'm doing and just helping people. But then again, I realized because of the call of my kids, I realized, wait a minute, I said I was just gonna be there for 2 hours, but I'm there for 5 hours. So that's
Mm,
overextending that you don't realize. Even
Mhm.
if you're
mm,
enjoying, but you get home exhausted and then depleted of energy because of dealing with so many women, and then at the same time your kids telling you that you've gone overboard. And that was for me a wake up call.
mm.
Yeah. Let's go to the next question. Why do so many women struggle to set boundaries without guilt?
I think that uh well, I think it was Yvette who spoke to this a little bit, earlier. No, Marcella, about us being nurturers. As women, we're supposed to carry, we're supposed to nurture, we're supposed to sacrifice self, and that's tantamount to love. So when we start to discover self, when we start to become depleted, when we start to lose people around us, and people are going to leave because they no longer have access to you. Not everybody, of course, but I believe when you set boundaries, you really find out the people who were true and real, and those people take away themselves. But I think we struggle to set boundaries because of what society has been telling us in terms of who we need to be and how much we need to carry. And if we're not sacrificing self, we are not doing a good job. And because those narratives are ingrained in our psyche, whenever we start to put those boundaries in place and stand up for ourselves, we start to feel guilty. And guilt sometimes, how do I explain it? Guilt sometimes come from just starting something new, and you'll get over it. It's something new, it's something different. You're losing friends, you're seeing a different side of you that may even scare you. So that feeling of guilt may come up. But I believe, well, from personal experience, it quickly dissipated. And I realized it just was because I was starting something new. But a lot of it is, just ingrained in us by what we are supposed to be as women. And so we carry this forward. And if we're not careful, we pass it on to our kids and they pass it on to their kids. So that is why discussions like these are very necessary so we can normalize that boundaries are healthy and we need them. They're necessary. They're not optional. They're not plan B. They should be plan A.
I also want to encourage people that are watching to join the discussion. Put something in the
Mhm.
comments so we can read it and talk about it. All right? So come on, join the conversation. Shahada, do you have why we feel so guilty when we set boundaries?
Absolutely. Good evening, ladies. Yes, actually, this is something that, someone already nailed it as a woman, as a We are seen more of a glue for the society. So we are always gluing everybody together, and we forget that we need recharging. We need to reset ourselves, and we need to have some sort of something to fall back on. And it is okay to draw those lines wherever we need to. And like Yvette mentioned earlier, like, it's like walls, but I look at it more as a door. Just like, our home is our foundation. No matter where we live, we have walls and we have door. And door is like an open door policy. So you set your groundwork and you leave it for everybody to enter or exit on their own choices. But before we can let anybody in, we have to have some sort of solid foundation to sit on or to fall back on.
Mhm.
So we don't feel guilty about it. And like Simone already mentioned, that, us women has been always someone who had kept balance for the entire generation, and our mothers were always giving. We have never seen our mothers receiving. So sometimes
Mm.
we don't know how to receive. And unless, like, we learn that and we acknowledge ourselves when we are, like, running low on energy or running low on anything, lean on other people, because as much as we want to build the next generation or our children, we also want to build that little foundation for ourselves and that safe room. So uh, we can take a breath and we can reset and we can rest.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something else I wanted to share with you all about boundaries that I've been saying for a long time. Boundaries are the way you teach people how to treat you. When you have boundaries, they will know what you like, what you don't like, and they will know when they step over the line. A lot of times when you don't have boundaries, people do whatever they want to do to you,
Mhm.
and they, and a lot of times they may not know, but that's why it's so important to have boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I'd like to pick up on what you said when people don't know that you have boundaries. So it's so important to communicate that and
mhm.
say that, okay, it's not okay with me that you're doing this. So I think that's where assertiveness is so important as well, because we not
Mhm.
only protect ourselves for our boundaries, but we also protect the other person. I mean, when we don't let them in, of course, we also show them that I will also respect where you will also set your boundaries for me. And so when I'm also thinking of boundaries, I also think of how this respecting of boundaries and not feeling guilty that you have this space for yourself, and then also allowing another person to feel that okay, that's how it feels to have a space of your own, so that they can also
Mhm.
be respected. And I think in that way we also build bridges of understanding,
Hmm.
so that people don't feel anymore that guilt that okay, I feel guilty, or the other person will resent that you are putting a boundary or putting that imagine, sometimes it's emotional and psychological when people just go to you and say, can I have your time? And inconsiderately, right? It's okay,
Mhm.
but of course emotional boundaries are also very important, because there's only so much that one can carry. We're not always okay as well. And so at the same time, for another person, it's also good to be asking the person, are you okay? Is it the limit? Are you okay with the things that I am going? So communication, yeah, there is so crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna add that communication is really important. I'm thinking about something that happened with me and somebody who I thought was a friend. Um, she violated me in a very, very bad way. And I had to really explain to her what a boundary is, and I honestly don't think she gets it to this day. Because in her mind, I said to her, if I see you in a ditch, I'll pick you up, but that doesn't mean we're friends. That's the boundary I set with her because our kids interact. So I'll say, hey, it's no malice or anything, but she just couldn't comprehend that there's a difference between just hating somebody and setting up a boundary. And what I deem as a boundary, she didn't see anything wrong with it. So I had to just step back because I need to protect my peace. And I realized from that discussion that you will lose people along the way because not everybody can appreciate what a boundary is. Not everybody will be where you are at that particular time. And I just had to realize that's okay. But I was really baffled as to why she couldn't understand that this is where it is. It doesn't mean that I hate you, but she just couldn't comprehend. But I tried my best to communicate. And I also accept that people will receive, no matter how you sugarcoat something and try to break it down, some people will still receive the message the way how they want to receive it versus what you're trying to say. So that was a fail for her. But I'm protecting my space and my peace and my home by just putting that imaginary wall between us. I'll say, hey, the kids will play together at school, but she's no longer welcome in my space. So that's how I chose to deal with that situation. But communication is very important because if you don't know or if you don't share it with somebody, sometimes they really don't know because we have different value systems, different expectations, and I may grow up in a home where something is okay, but in another space it's not. And we will sometimes lose friendships if we don't take the time to just state our boundaries. And the people who are indeed your friends, they'll understand and they'll respect it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go to the next question. So before we go to the next question, Zell, I'm not sure if anybody's commented. I don't see any comments. If there's anybody that has commented so far, can you put it up on the screen, please? All right, nobody's commented. So let's go to the next question. What's the difference between supporting people and overextending yourself?
Mm.
I think I would like to take.
All right.
Yeah. Basically, when someone was talking about how her boundaries did not go so well. So overextended is something that we had been previously doing. Like Marcella, you mentioned in the beginning that you were always you were always the go-to person for your community and for your husband and for your family and your friends. And all of a sudden now you have uh, redirected that energy towards internalizing, for your growth. So what happens is when we're overextending in the beginning and now all of a sudden we're cutting down, people don't understand what exactly is happening. So before you were growing other people, now you're growing yourself. And to find that balance between who you had been and who you are has kind of created a barrier between the friends that you have right now and the friends you previously had. And just because we are growing, not necessarily our circle, people who used to hang out, like we used to hang out with, are they're growing as well. Because, self-assessment, self-growth, and learning to draw a line where things need to be can be a journey of itself. And not everybody not everybody is on that path. Just because we have chosen that path to work on ourselves, not everybody else is doing it. So sometimes we have to give people the grace for who they are. And then having that healthy balance where you have harmony, even though you don't see your friends or your circle of people that you used to hang out with, but you have understanding of one another's needs and your need to step back or their need to attend to what their needs are without being disrespectful, without being overstepping.
Yeah. Well, Shahada, I still support a lot of people. And that's just who I am. That I'm growing, but I want to see other people grow as well. Overextending. Now, I have learned to don't overextend myself. And I also recognize when I'm doing too much, because some people, you want to help them, but they don't really appreciate your help. They don't uh, necessarily want your help, or it's the total opposite, where they want your help constantly. They don't want to do anything, they want you to do for them. And so
Exactly.
I've recognized those people, and I have grown to the fact that, grown up in the way that I've always been one to introspect. But now, I look at who's in my life, and I look at the purpose of the relationship. Why
Mhm.
are they in my life? And is it a one sided relationship?
Right.
And am I the giver and they're just the receiver? Because I've had relationships like that where because I tend to be a giver. So is it a two-way thing, or am I the one that's just the giver? And if
Mhm.
you're just the giver, then you're overextending yourself.
Right. Hmm. So, for me, support looks like I can speak to my life as a therapist or one of the lives I live. I walk alongside my clients. So for me, that's supporting them. And I do the same for my friends. But if I find myself doing the work for them or carrying the heavy load, that's when I know I'm overstepping. So, or overextending, sorry. So, support, I'm literally walking alongside you. And if I find, like you said, that I'm the only one calling, I'm the only one giving, when I'm in trouble, you're not there to listen. That's me. That's my cue to step back and knowing that, hey, this isn't a mutually beneficial thing and I'm giving too much. Because at this stage in my life, if it's not mutually beneficial and it's not aligned, I don't want it. So to the point where I'm giving and not receiving, and I feel depleted after I'm done interacting with you, that's when I know I'm overextended. But if it's mutual and we're doing it alongside each other, that's me being in a supportive role.
I like the word that you said, Simone. I'm feeling depleted.
Mm,
A lot of us feel depleted, and they make excuses for why they're depleted. And they don't want to. And I think that this, going back to the other question about why do we feel guilty? Because this is my friend.
mhm,
Why am I depleted? Why, when I talk to them, when I get off the phone, I'm just like drained. But
trained.
this is my friend. So we have to
Mhm,
recognize that something is not right, that there needs to be a boundary there. Or
mhm,
something needs to happen so that when you have contact with that person, you're not depleted, drained,
mhm.
overextended.
Yeah. Constantly, because sometimes our friends may be in a crisis and you are going to be depleted because they are in that acute state of stress. So that's different
Mhm.
for me, but it shouldn't be an ongoing case. Where I had a friend like that. Like one day I noticed every time I leave her, I started to feel physically sick. And that's when I started to pay attention how my body reacts to being around certain people. I kid you not, I went to her house. I was healthy as a horse. And when I got home, I had a fever. I had a headache and I was in bed for 3 days. She never had anything positive to say ever. Right. And I had to have that conversation with her. I said, girl, I love you, but please talk to somebody else because I came to your house healthy and this is how I felt afterwards. And that wasn't just a one off thing, but that was the most serious of all times. So I started to
Mhm.
pay attention about, to the way my body reacts. As I said to the first question, it doesn't creep up on me. It creeps up on me, just doesn't happen in one go. And that was the situation with her. I noticed that trend every time I leave her, I just usually feel drained and it's always woe is me. And yeah, I just had to, we're still friends. No, we still talk, we still communicate. But the relationship that we had, I don't think she was at that point where she understood what I was saying, but we're cordial. But this boundary thing of which we speak, allowing people to permeate our walls constantly and draining us, it can physically and mentally and emotionally affect us, like our overall health.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I like what you said, Simone, about with the clients, you support them, you walk with them, but you don't
Mhm.
overextend. That's it. And then for I mean, the same, I guess, with our families and our
Yeah.
friends, we support them. But for me, when I listen to my heart, like my heart is telling me something, my body, like what you said, your body uh,
Mhm.
showed up with a reaction, you got sick. And so for me, being self aware as well, like, why is this happening to me? Why do I feel this way? And then going back to, I think, am I overextending myself? Am I giving too much? And that it causes me to be drained. So again, we ask ourselves. And then for me, that's what happened also, like you with your friend. I asked myself, why does it happen to me? I just see her name on my phone and I already have all these reactions in my body. So we have that relative or we have that friend or we have that colleague who's like that. And so we ask ourselves when we become aware of the why, maybe there is something inside, maybe there is a past thing, or maybe this person is just really um too much negative energy. So for me, I think that's where overextending is really something that we have to tell ourselves. And as you also said, it's good to tell the other person as well that, maybe you can talk to somebody else who can have the same wavelength and help you as well. So it's nice to see that we can be aware and we can help others be aware.
All right, let's go to the next question. What is something you've had to release because you realize it was never yours to carry in the first place?
How people respond to my boundaries. I mean, again, people are gonna catch an attitude, as somebody said earlier, and pull away because they no longer have that unlimited access to me. And I can be responsible for their feelings. And I say that with caution because people use that as an excuse to be mean. So I'm not going to be mean. I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to say what's on my mind. But at the same time, I'm also aware, like I said earlier, no matter how you sugarcoat some things, if people are not in the position to receive it, they are going to take it the way they want to take it. So I'm not 100% responsible for how people respond to my boundaries. And I have to release that alongside, what other people expect from me. Sometimes I'm even guilty of it. I expect certain things from my husband and friends. And that's where I get disappointed. Not to say that I shouldn't have expectations, but that is something I had to just release. Other people's expectations of me, I'm going to do me, and I know what I'm capable of, and I usually articulate that. And if I articulate it and you're still expecting, I cannot carry that for you. Alongside the way how you choose to respond to my boundaries and how I choose to maintain them.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything?
Oh, I would like to add, actually, for me personally, I had been someone who has been writing ever since I was a child, but I never had the courage to get something published because in our family or where I come from, like, a lot of times when we say things, people get offended. And a lot of times we don't know how to convey our message without getting people offended, but it's never about other people, it's about our story, our journey. So when I was writing my book, Blind Date with Destiny, and a lot of that came up for me is like, us women, we carry the generational trauma, generational burdens that our grandmothers had taken, and then our mothers and their mothers. And now we're the first generation who is trying to break free so we can set a better future for our next generations, especially the girls. So a lot of times, like, being the girls, no matter what part of the world you were born or raised in, certain things just fall on your shoulders. And we just gracefully carry them without unloading. So for me, when I was writing the book, there was a lot that was coming up, and I was able to write it and get it off my shoulders and then get it off my chest. So when my book finally was published, that gave me a next level of, like, breakthrough that couldn't have happened unless I had done what I did.
Mm.
Yeah. Anybody else? I think I answered this before. The question is, what is something you've had to release because you realize it was never yours to carry in the first place? And so for me, I think that happened a lot, wherein because I'm a giver and, the people that I love, I want to see them happy and smiling. So I would overextend myself to help them. And for me, I think the thing is that when people start taking advantage of the fact that you're a giver, the fact that you are there for them and to help them in whatever way you capacity you can help. And it doesn't always have to be where it's detrimental to you.
Mm.
You can still be carrying too much, carrying something that doesn't belong to you. And that is can be an issue because like I said before, people will expect that because you've done it all the time. And then when you realize that, why am I doing this? Why am I carrying their load and I'm struggling? And they like, hey girl, kind of thing, they're not struggling at all. And
Marcella, can I add something? As you were sharing, what came to my mind? You can drag the horse to the water, but you cannot make the horse drink the water. A lot
right,
of times
Mhm.
people are in those positions where, like, they need help, but they haven't really had that understanding or, like, breakthrough where they can recognize that.
right,
So
Right.
since you have been doing it for them, they just automatically expect that you will keep doing
exactly,
it unless you tell them, like, what, enough is enough. I
right,
can help you do it. You can do it yourself. I can help you build that confidence, but that is a journey for you, not for me.
exactly. So now, Shahada, I recognize it. Like I have someone in my life that is young and he's asking me to do some things. But I recognize it and I'm like, well, you need to do A, B, and C, and then I'll help you. And
Mm.
it's so interesting because he is very spoiled. He's used to people doing for him, not just me. As a matter of fact, I don't really do a lot for him. But anyway, he called me and he's used to people driving him around. He's an adult, but he doesn't have his driver's license. He's people driving him around. And I told his mother because his mother's trying to get him to get a driver's license. And he's like, no, because he needs to practice parking. And he's like, no, I don't want to do it. And I told his mother, I said, okay, if you don't want to do it, you need to learn the subway system. You need to learn public transportation because we're not going to keep carrying you around to, work and this, that, and the other. So I am almost certain that she did tell him that. And he called me when he was on the subway. And he was good. He was good, and I was proud of him. But then later on, he called me and said he wanted to take a taxi home, and could I give him $10? And so I was going to do it. I was going to do it. But I could not think of my password. And so I couldn't do it. And then when I thought about it, I said, you know what? That was a blessing. That was a good thing because he needed to figure it out. So I told him, I said, well, because I think he was on a date, and I think he had to take 3 things of transportation, 3 trains or something. And I said, well, what you need to do is take the transportation to the point where you can use the money that you have to get home if you want to take a taxi. But he figured it out. And he wouldn't have figured it out if I would have given him the money. So I did fall into the trap, but thank goodness I couldn't figure out my password.
You set that boundary. Your phone didn't work for you.
Right.
You know what, Marcella? That just shows how great of a coach you are, because as coaches, we recognize where we need to shed the light. But it's for them to walk the journey. So I'm glad, you were able to show him that. And a lot of times people would only learn if they go through the hard, difficult path that that needs to be, because a lot of times that is the foundation.
Yes.
And for us, we grew up in times where we had to do things. We had to meet the one milestone to get to the next, and things were always laid out, and we had expectations from the very early on. Our parents had set some sort of standards, whereas we live in today's time where everything is just click away. And in my house, my kids are funny. When we were kids and we broke something, my toy broke or something, we had to save up till next month or whatever time it took to buy that. But nowadays, kids just go on Amazon and buy it. They think home delivery. So I guess part of that is everything is just click away. And parents have given open access. But it's for us to take the role of parent and show them the way. Unless we teach them, life is going to teach them the hard way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on.
So it's like that story of teach the man to fish, he will eat for a day. If you give him fish, he eats for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, he eats for his life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the story that I want him to learn, because he's young. He's 22, so he can't depend on people all the time. He needs to figure it out for himself. Do it for himself. But anyway, let's go to the next question. Can boundaries strengthen relationships? Why or why not? And we've been talking about this all night, but so I want all of us to quickly share with us a story or an answer.
I would like to go. Actually, you know what? I had learned boundaries the difficult way, because I come from the culture and background where, it's open door policy. Everybody's welcome and everybody can come to anybody's house anytime. So when my kids were little, they were always coming to me when I needed my me time. Then they wouldn't understand that. But when I sat them down and I explained it to them, then if mommy's sitting in the back room on her couch or my chair, I have a reading chair where usually I sit down and read. That means I'm recharging. If you want me to do what you need, then you need to let me do what I need. So once they understand the concept, they gave me that time. But in the beginning, it was difficult. They wouldn't understand what the boundary was. But after they started giving me the time, and I needed that time to relax and sit back and reflect on what needed to be done. And they got a better mommy, who gave them a better time, quality time. So a lot of times, we give a lot more quantity without the quality. But if we draw that boundary and sit back and relax and recharge, we give the best of ourselves, just like, we cannot pour from empty cup. And sometimes we need to recognize that more than anybody else. And once we draw that line, it has to be a solid line, not a line in a sand where anybody can cross. And it's not for anybody else to respect, but for us, when we say we're going to do something, we better act on it.
Right.
For me, I think I don't know if it actually strengthens the relationship or not, but at least I know if somebody sets a boundary with me, I know where I stand and I know where they stand. So if nothing else, that foundation is laid. And no, I'm gonna retract. Yes, it can strengthen the relationship because then when that happens, the respect is gonna grow. And if respect is there as a foundation, that's a good friendship. So yes, I believe the boundaries will help you know where you stand. You will see who was just there to suck you dry versus those who are there to fill you up. And from that, the respect will grow and the friendship will become stronger.
Yes.
Really beautiful, Simone.
What did you say, Yvette?
Oh, I said Simone said something very beautiful about that. When the boundary is respected, the relationship is actually strengthened because then
Mhm.
you know that you are not going to be guilty if you don't give. There,
Right.
you know that you are respected when you can only be up to at a certain point.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I definitely agree with that. And my philosophy has been for a long time, boundaries teach others how to treat you. If
Yeah,
they don't
Yeah.
know, they don't know. But with boundaries, they do know. So it's nothing to feel guilty about. You're protecting your peace, you're protecting your emotions. And just like Simone said earlier, that she was with somebody and her body broke down and she got it. She ended up with a temperature, right?
yeah,
So
Mhm.
boundaries help with that. What's going on in your body, what's going on in your mind, and it definitely strengthens relationships because it teaches people how to treat you.
Yeah.
exactly.
So our last question of the day is, what would you say to the woman who feels guilty for needing rest, space, or support? And I know all of us can relate to this.
Mm. I'd
True.
say don't don't feel guilty, but that's easier said than done. Again, it's ingrained in us to carry, and when we don't carry and when we make changes we start to feel guilty. But
Mm-hmm.
just understand, I think Shahida said you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So when I
Right.
set my boundary, when I stop overextending myself, you will benefit because I'm not snapping at you, and the love will naturally pour. But if I start to feel like a resource, the resentment, will build. And rest is
Mm-hmm.
not optional. Babies take naps, cats take naps, dog takes naps. So I believe rest, not just naps, but rest is very important. When you're feeling restful, not just only physically, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally, you are really a better version of yourself. So I'm not going to tell you not to feel guilty because you're a human and guilt will come up. The idea behind that is for every guilty thought that you have, try and replace them with two non-guilty thoughts. I know that's not a word, but try and balance it out. We're human beings, so we're gonna feel. So the correct answer would be don't, but we're humans and we're going to experience some form of guilt, especially when we're trying something new and we're seeing people around us go, and people start to pull away from us. We're gonna feel some sense of guilt and wonder if we're doing the right thing. But don't don't allow anybody to permeate your boundaries. It's easy to set boundaries, I believe. It's hard to maintain them. So
Right.
maintain those boundaries. People will respect you, and the people who are meant to be in your space will respect you and stay. But rest is not optional. It is needed because the people around you will benefit from that better version of you. And of course, you're feeling good inside. So you're going to show up as a better human to those around you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wonderfully said. For me, if I were talking to a friend and I see her overextending, I see her go like being just run over by everybody, I would really tell her, like, I would let her imagine a
Mm-hmm.
situation where she is empowered, that she can say no, and that guilt is okay. But then, how
Mm-hmm.
do you know that the guilt is one that is good until the guilt that is really not helping her anymore? When she listens to her heart and her body and recognizes that it's already reacting negatively, and then telling her to try to get out of that safe and comfortable zone of being in that zone for a long time, because everybody expects me to be this, but try, imagine yourself to go out there and say no,
Mm.
and how do you feel about it, and then try it one day at a time, step by step, because it is not easy to really just change yourself, but at least try it, and then see
Mm-hmm.
how you feel, and then see how people also react. The reaction of the people who will not like you anymore, it's fine, because they don't deserve you.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who respect you, even if you have put these boundaries, then these are the people who are worth who you are.
Mm-hmm.
That is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say, like, it's not for anybody else, but rather for us, because us women had so much that we had carried on for generations, and breaking
Yeah.
free is going to take lots of effort. And we can start from baby steps. Do one thing at a time for yourself and see how you feel internally. If you're aligned internally and that gives you a little bit more peace and gives you rest, take it. And
Mm-hmm.
as the guilt creeps in, check in with yourself rather than with anybody else. Like, how did it feel when you took that little break? When you, like Simone mentioned, if cats and dogs take naps, mommies can take naps too. And after the nap, if you got up and you got more done and you had more quality time with your family and your friends or whoever that was, then it was worth it. And yes, guilt is going to come visit you, but uh, respond with how you feel internally rather than externally, because
Yeah.
us women, we love filling up the schedules, filling up the calendars, but we
Mm-hmm.
never take the time to take a little nap. So just pause and look within how you feel after you take a little break.
Mm-hmm.
I actually scheduled my naps. I schedule because
That's
well, if I
wonderful.
can schedule, I schedule my hair clients, I schedule my therapy clients, I schedule everything. Listen, I need between this time and this time and this day to take a nap, and it's just a power nap. Even though sometimes it turns into sleep, like hours, but I thank God I have the privilege and the ability to just fall asleep. I know for some people it's not easy, but the point I'm trying to make is we have to schedule ourselves in. We can't schedule the world into our calendar and leave ourselves to become depleted and burnt out. So schedule that nap and don't feel, well, you're gonna feel guilty about it. Schedule that nap, and if you feel guilty about it, it's okay. And Shahida say you after that rest, you usually feel better physically, mentally. So then you can get up and do more than you would actually get done if you had pushed through just feeling weary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
So what I wanted to do is just share something with you about how to set boundaries.
Mm.
So the
Mhm.
first thing that we need to do to set boundaries is to have a clear idea of what's working and what's not so that you can articulate it clearly.
Mm.
And then I have it written down. So clearly identify unacceptable behaviors. Start by reflecting on the behaviors you find unacceptable in the relationship. Then clarify what crosses the line for you. And so when you decide to do that, um, it becomes, you have a very clear idea of where the boundaries have been crossed, where you need to set clearer boundaries, or if you don't have boundaries, where you need to set boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then the second thing is, so craft your boundaries based upon clarity. Use, use the understanding of what's unacceptable to help you define your boundaries, which is kind of like what I just said. But that's point two, that once you are clear, then you're able to articulate it to somebody else. And so when you articulate it, communicate your boundaries, always use the I statement, not like you did this, because when
Mm-hmm.
you use you, it already puts the other person on the defense. So you
Mode.
use I. Have a
Mm-hmm.
conversation with the person and clearly communicate the behaviors you find unacceptable. For example, I feel disrespected when you. I need space when this happens. All
Yeah.
right. And then
Yeah.
four is you have to, and this is the hardest part for some people, I believe. You have to state the consequences if boundaries are not respected.
Mm.
True.
True.
Because if you don't have any consequences, what incentive do they have to change their behavior? So you
It's
Mm.
like
have
a
to
kid.
be clear about the
Mm.
consequences. And then when you're clear, guess what? You have to stay consistent and
Mm.
courageous. You have to uphold those boundaries. And
Mm-hmm.
when they cross it, you have to identify that you've crossed the boundary.
That's so true. Yeah.
Mm.
Clarity is so
Yeah.
important and consistency really.
Yeah.
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 It's like dealing with a kid, like with my toddlers. If you do
Yes.
this, this is what will happen.
Right.
And I mean it. If I promise them something, they're gonna get something.
Yeah.
But if I
Mm.
say if you do this, I'm gonna do that, and then I don't do anything about it, I don't follow through. After a while, they're gonna take me for a clown, and I can't afford for that to happen. So I find that's how I have to treat, people around me. And to the situation I was talking about before with the friend who didn't understand what a boundary was. I saw where it was headed, and I spoke to her about it on numerous occasions. I said, at the rate that you're going, if you continue to do this, the friendship will be no longer. And I gave her ample chances. So when I not cut somebody off, because I'm not in the business of cutting people off, but when I draw that boundary, I don't usually feel any guilt because I articulate how I'm feeling and I tell you what's going to happen. So when that happened, I had to explain to her, but I didn't feel guilty for taking the stance I took. So I kind of deal with adults the way I deal with my kids. Like, if you do this, this is what will happen. It's up to you if you listen or not, but I'm going to follow through. And then, sometimes when you follow through, you're the one who is wicked and all of that. But again, I've learned not to put that on my plate. That's for you to carry and sort through on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
So, Zell, is there any questions that or comments people have made? If so, put it up. If not, it doesn't look like it. Okay, we had a quiet crowd today, or they
Yeah.
didn't they didn't know how to do it. One or the other.
No, they're thinking of ways that they're going to leave tonight's show and put some boundaries in place. This was a neat topic. So I'm going to say that they were busy writing and taking notes.
All right.
Yeah, on how to set boundaries when they leave the car.
All
True.
right. All right. So it is almost 104.
8:04.
Yeah. Oh, I mean an hour and 3-4 minutes we've been talking.
Oh,
That's what I meant. And so before we end the call, does anybody have anything burning within them that we didn't get a chance to discuss and they want to short, but discuss it?
I'm good.
Marcella, I think you have nailed it, and especially like with those last summary of how to
Mhm.
set the boundaries. That cleared a lot of things for me personally. Thank you so much for
Mm.
that. And I think creating some sort of visual aid for us or for your coaching clients would be beneficial for everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. I wanted to share that I am in the middle of redoing my website. But if you are interested, go to my website and there is I do have a free giveaway.
Mhm.
And you can go there and receive, it's a 5-minute reset that I am giving you.
Thank you. That's nice.
Thank you for that. And I'm sure our listeners, even later on, they will find this very helpful.
Yes,
Mhm.
I am
Mhm.
sure. And so we will be back again in, I think it's September, maybe the end of August. And I say that because for personal reasons, my aunt, she listened to the replay, but she was like, "Oh, y'all need to do it while I'm free." So she's busy doing other things during, the school year, but she's off in the
Mhm.
summer. And so I said, okay, well, maybe we'll do it like late August so that you
Mm.
can join. So that will be, we'll let you know, and we'll let you know the topic.
All
All
right.
right. Well, bye
Thank
Thank
for
you
you,
so
now.
Marcella.
much, Marcella. Keep up the
Bye,
good work.
Simone. Thank you,
And you
Bye.
Shahida.
can be,
Thank
Bye,
you. Good
Shania.
night, ladies. Thank you so
before
much.
we ended, also, if you do have comments, you can always comment on the recording on
Yeah.
YouTube. You go to Crank It Up Coaching live and you can listen to it again and ask questions or give comments. All right. Bye for now.
Bye for
Bye.
now.
Good night.